So before you get started with actually threading, you first want to prepare your fabric, and you want to get all the panels that you're going to put on your base layer, which is your first layer, and you want to spread them out evenly according to how you're going to thread them. In this situation, we're just using basic white, so there is no sort of pattern. I just lay them all out exactly where they're going to lay in front of the backdrop. Sometimes to eliminate the bending of constantly getting panels, I will just get like 3 at a time or 4 at a time and rest them in the cusp of my arm and the fold, and I will just work with my drape. Now I am looking for my tags, and you want to make sure your tags and your seam is facing the back. I know it may not seem like a big deal, but it's nothing worse than threading your drape to find a tag hanging in the front. So this is regular rod pocket technique, meaning you are threading your drape according to the rod pocket. Some drapes, especially if you purchase them pre-made, only have tags on one end because both of the ends will have they will have rod pockets. So in this case, this one, the tag must be on the opposite end because I didn't see it. So you just continuously drape, and you want to nestle the crossbar right there on your shoulder. And when you feel like your crossbar is full of enough drape and you need to slide them over, or maybe you need to prepare some drape, you just kindly put it back on the upright to give you some space and some time to get your next panels together for threading. I'm looking for that tag. There it is. I want to make sure it's in the back. And I'm going to continue to rod pocket. This is very simple, considered rod pocket technique. You just slide your drape back some to give you some room, and you continue to drape. So now I'm going to go on the opposite end of the first end I draped earlier, and now I'm going to take the other 3 panels and drape the opposite side. Same way, you want to nestle the crossbar in on your shoulder for support, and you just slide your drape on accordingly. And to ensure that you have room for the your next drape, you just want to slide them back some. And you want to be careful because sometimes the crossbar that's on the opposite end that's already draped can slip out if you may have it too high, you may have it adjusted too high, or you may not be securing your crossbar at the fold of your neck. Your crossbar can come out on the opposite end. So just be careful of that. See the tag there? I made sure it's facing the back. Looking for the tag again. Make sure it's in the back. So once you get all that threaded onto your backdrop, you want to just replace your crossbar up on the upright in the slot, and just kind of close in the gaps of your fabric. Okay, so now we're going to get into measuring. And measuring, I always use a flexible measuring tape. It could be any cheap one, just as long as it is covering at least 6 feet. So I would always measure from end to the center of my backdrop, because you always want to find your middle and always work from your middle. So now that I've found where the center was, now I go and measure each panel, and I make sure each panel is only 12 feet wide. Once I get to the 3rd panel, since this is only a 6-foot backdrop, it should stop at 36 inches. The other side, same thing. That should be a total of 36 inches. Then I just measure out each panel to be 1 foot. And then I will adjust my drape accordingly. So normally, good rule of thumb, how I drape is I always use 1 panel per foot. So if this is a 6-foot backdrop, I would use 6 panels. Each panel would be approximately 12 feet in width, and the entire backdrop would be 6 feet, and the center of my backdrop should be, or it is 36 inches, and that's exactly where my two panels should meet in the middle. So now that I see all of my fabric is evenly dispersed, I go in and just start cleaning up to make sure that it's hanging how it should be, making sure nothing is gabbled together. Now I'll show you how to add your focal fabric that doesn't have a seam. This is a piece of fabric that I purchased from Joann Fabrics. It caught my eye. I liked it. I thought it was a nice embellishment to a basic white, and I never sold the seam. So when you don't have a seam and you just have basic fabric, you want to lay it over your, wherever you're going to place it, whether it's your first layer, your second layer, but it should be your first layer. And then you want to look at the pattern. This pattern has circles, so I'm trying to be sure that my circles are straight across. Since I am looking at the circles, there's no need to really measure because they give me a good starting point to measure from. Sometimes even the pattern may be a little off though, so you definitely want to double check by looking along the sides to be sure that it's even. So now we're going to go to the back, and this piece of fabric we're actually just going to pin because, like I said, it does not have a seam. It has no rod pocket. So we're just going to pin it to the back of our base fabric, which is the white. And we're going to use the same pins we've discussed with the pearl top. And we're going to go in at the very beginning, but make sure you bring your pin back through. If you just stick it in without bringing the point back out, it's going to slide right out. And I normally, a good rule of measurement would be about 6 to 8 inches, just so you don't have any drooping in between the pins. That's a good way to make sure it's secure all the way across. And again, just following your circles to ensure that your fabric is even. And then pin that last portion and you are done. Your focal fabric is hung. You definitely want to check. You can use your measuring tape to make sure that it's the same width on opposite ends, meaning the white. That way you're sure that your focal fabric is directly in the middle. Here we are going to use the double crossbar hangers so we can install a double crossbar. We are going to install each hanger on the opposite ends of the uprights. Once you install the first hanger, you are going to just rest the crossbar in the slot on the hanger so you can do the installation on the other side. So you're going to install a crossbar hanger into the slot of this upright as well. And be sure you are using the same groove on each crossbar hanger because they have two different grooves that you could use. Then you're going to hook one end of your crossbar into the slot. Choose if you're going to use the first slot or the second slot. I always use the slot toward the outer edge so it can give it a clean, sleek look and nothing is sticking out. Then you'll hook it on the other side and you are complete. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how to make a panel using pins. Here I'm using a piece of fabric. It's just red velvet fabric. I'm going to show you how I make my panels when I haven't had time to sew them or I'm using tablecloths. You're going to start with the pixie pins, which is the pearl top pins that I've been using, and you are going to lay your fabric out flat on a surface. It could be the floor, it could be a table, whatever it is. I'm using the floor. Make sure you have your finished side facing down so you can be sure you're pinning inward. Then you're going to flip it over maybe about 4 or 5 inches to give yourself a good enough space to insert your rod. And then you want to take your pearl top pin and you want to insert in one end and make sure to bring it clear through the other end. Same way we did the white focal fabric. You want to continue to pin the same exact way for every 6 to 8 inches to give yourself good measurement to ensure that you don't have any sagging in between your pins. So just stick your pin in one end and bring it clear through the other end. And definitely you want to be sure that there's a pin on the very end of each side. That way you don't have any flippage. The very end, such as that. Just make sure that goes in, that goes through, and there you go. Now I'm going to go to the other side to finish it off. Okay, so now we're going to continuously build on top of our base fabric. Now we're going to build with the red velvet fabric and some gold sequin, and we're going to start by prepping our fabric. Now we're going to arrange our fabric on the floor directly in front of the backdrop in the order that it needs to be added to the crossbar. So your fabric at the end should look like this. So be mindful that the red fabric that is on the ends is actually going to end up in the middle because that is how it's going to be threaded. So you don't want to lay your fabric out according to your design. You want to lay your fabric out according to how you need to enter it onto the crossbar. Meaning whatever fabric is going directly in the middle needs to be on the end when you're threading. Needs to be on the end on the floor. So we're going to remove our crossbar on one end. We are going to nestle it onto our shoulder. And we're going to start with the very first piece of fabric, which was the red. However, the red for the design needs to go directly in the middle. So be real careful of your order, how you lay your drape out on the floor. And then we're going to get the next piece. And this is why it's important to have a short system. I'm looking for my tag so I can put it in the back. But if I was to have had a taller unit, like maybe an 8-foot upright, this would have been difficult and sometimes it slides out. If you don't have the castle top unit, your crossbar can slide out of the hook. So just be very careful. Now I'm going with the gold. And guys, this gold piece of fabric right here actually was a tablecloth. I sewed this panel very similar to how I told you guys to use the pins. So I took pretty much a tablecloth and pinned it along the way I showed you previously, and then I just ran a seam through to create an actual panel. I used to just pin these like I pinned the burgundy, but I was beginning to use them so often and was tired of dealing with the pins. I just went on ahead and sewed it. So once I have all of my panels on, I am going to put the crossbar back into the hanger and I'm going to go to the other side. So same thing. Remove the crossbar and wrestle it in the cradle of your neck. Now, if you notice how I have one piece of my burgundy loose, I didn't tack the very end. That is because when I have the two pieces, the two velvet pieces directly meeting in the middle, I want to take one and overlap the other so you don't see where they meet. So one of my panels, if it's a homemade panel such as these, I always leave a little flap available so I can overlap, and then I'll pin once I am straightening out my fabric. I'll pin the two that's in the middle together, just on the end so they don't slide apart and have a gap. So if you can tell, I am first draping with red velvet, then and it's more or less of a burgundy. And then I have a burgundy crush voile, which is the crush sheer. And then I am going to a gold sequin. And this isn't the heavy duty sequin. Sometimes I really do like using the thinner ones because they drape better. So this is the sequin that actually was a tablecloth. And then I am finishing it with this is considered like a taupe, another crush sheer. So that's all I'm using for this second layer. The base layer again is the white crush sheer. I have 6 panels, and then on top of that we've attached the focal fabric that we saw previously, and then this panel is what we have on our second layer. Now we have to measure. Same as before, using the flexible measuring tape. And I am going to find my middle to be sure that all my panels are even on both sides. So the 1/2 should be 36 because this is a 6-foot backdrop. And without even moving any of my hands, it should be the very same on the opposite side. So I would find my middle and be sure. Now I'm going to measure each panel to be sure that they are even, have even widths on each side. And this is what adds to your backdrop being very even, very polished looking, and premium. You will learn to skip this step, but in the beginning, I highly advise you to just do it so you can get your eyes trained to know exactly what certain adjustments are. Welcome back, guys. Now we are going to add a valance to your design. We are still building off of this red and gold backdrop. So you just want to make sure that all of your fabric is neat. And then you are going to go and close up the middle where I told you I leave a little piece over extra so I could flap it over and then pin it together so it doesn't have a gap once I lift it. So you just want to secure that with a pin, but be sure that your pin, whether it's a safety pin or one of the pearl head pins, make sure your pin isn't seen. So then just clean out in all of your little fabrics, and now we are going to grab the fabric that we are going to create the valance with, or the swoop. Some of you guys call them valance, some of you guys call them swags, some call them swoops, but the appropriate term is a valance or swag. Swag is appropriate as well. You want to find your middle, just like that. Find the middle of your fabric, and then you're going to secure it with your finger, because this part you're going to pin to the middle of your backdrop. So you could use a safety pin or a pearl head pin. I normally use a safety pin because it just secures it right on top where it needs to be. So you can secure this to the front crossbar, but if you do, 9 times out of 10 it will hang down like such, but don't worry about that because it's not going to harm your design. Or you can actually pin to the back, the crossbar that's in the back. Either one is really just to secure your fabric. So then you just want to go up to one end. You're going to pull your fabric up to one end and make sure it's tight and you have it pulled across. and I must be struggling for a pen. And you're going to pin this fabric there, right where it is. You're going to take your safety pin and you're going to pin it either to the upright, or you can pin it to the crossbar hanger. Either way, you're really just trying to get your fabric secure. So it don't matter how you pin it. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be super neat, because you are going to take this pin out. So you're just pinning it. I normally stick it through the slot of the upright, and that way I know it's secure and I know my fabric is flush against the crossbar. So now I am going to the other side to do the same exact thing. Now I got my pin already secure, so I don't have to fumble and find it. And then I'm just going to bring that fabric all the way over. Be sure that it's tight and even. And I'm going to pin this side same way. I'm going to pin it, stick the pin through the slot upward of the upright and secure my fabric that way. Now you're just going to look for your fabric, see if anything's on it, anything you need to fix before you continue to the next step. Okay, now we're ready to start creating the swags. So you're going to keep the fabric taut into your right hand and you're going to feed it into your left hand. Just keep your left hand resting on the upright and it's not going to move. Only thing it's going to do is grab the fabric to secure your pleats. Then we're going to slow this down just so you can see. Okay, so if you see it in slow motion, I am just taking my right hand and I am feeding the fabric to my left hand, all the while creating pleats. And as I go along, I'm going to still look to ensure that the pleats are forming. So if you see, I'm just grabbing it up slowly but surely and feeding it into my left hand. My left hand has not moved its position yet. It's still resting on the upright. And you're just going to continue that through all the way until you're at the end of your fabric. I am looking in another camera and that normally doesn't happen. That's just for the sake of the video. So how you would want to do it is just periodically peek. You want to periodically just look around the front to be sure that you're still forming pleats, even though you're still going to clean it up at the end. But just so you don't end up having to take your complete valance down, just look, periodically look just to see. And then your last piece, again, you still always want to fold it inward so you don't see your inseam. So just fold it inward and then make it go with the rest of the pleats. Then once you have all your fabric in your hand, you're going to release that safety pin that was holding the fabric. Take that out. And now you're going to tie all of this fabric with a pipe cleaner. Just be sure you have a tight grip on it, and long as you have a tight grip on it, you're fine. Your pleats, they're not going to go anywhere. Once you secure it with a pipe cleaner, They're there to stay. Then you can start adjusting. So just take your pipe cleaner, wrap it around. Make sure it's tight, because if it's loose, you're going to lose some pleats. And now you're going to take that pipe cleaner and you're going to secure it to the upright. So you're going to take one end of the pipe cleaner, slide it through the slot of the upright, and then you're going to give it about 2 to 3 twists to secure it. See these photos for example. Just like that. Just slide one end through the slot, then tie it, and for now your valance is secure. So this is how it's going to look as of now from the front. You've only swagged one side, so it should have a good flow until you get to the other side. So again, we're going to put now our right hand on top of the upright, and we are going to feed it with our left hand. Same exact thing we did on the other side. Just continuously feed, and you can see the swags and the pleats forming. So even though I am looking in the camera, you still want to just periodically turn around, just take a look at it just to be sure you're not off-centered, or maybe you have too many pleats on one side than the other, and just continuously feed your fabric. And remember, once you get to the very end, you are going to tuck that flap in so you don't see your seam, and then you're going to, same thing you did on the other side, you're going to release your safety pin, and you are going to secure your fabric with a pipe cleaner. There's your pipe cleaner, and you want to get a tight grip on your fabric. This is just to secure it, because you're still going to go in and clean up any of your pleats. Now you have it secured with the pipe cleaner. You're going to do the same exact thing as far as securing that to the upright. Take one end of the pipe cleaner, go through the slot, and then give it about a good 2 to 3 twists, and you're good to go. Again, this is just a temporary hold until we are done with cleaning up our swag. So now you want to be sure to straighten out any imperfections you'll have on your swag. And all of your pleats are neat, but however, this middle piece is a little disturbed. So remember that pin that we put in there just to secure your fabric? We want to take that out, and now we want to just smooth the fabric out. So you're going to undo your pipe cleaner just enough so you can make the adjustments that's needed to be made. As long as you have your fabric secure in your hand, it won't go anywhere. So again, you just want to pull it tight to fix any grooves that was in your pleating, and then reattach your pipe cleaner. And make sure it's tight, not too tight, because sometimes pipe cleaners do pop, especially if it has significant wear and tear, but just tight enough to where your drape is secure. Don't worry about your pleats. At this point, just worry about your tie, because as you see, I could take it down, I can move it around. Those pleats are not going anywhere. So then you want to just reattach it to the crossbar hanger. Make sure it's secure. And then we are going to go and do the same thing on the other side. So once you are sure that all of your pleats are neat and your fabric's nice and tight, you can secure your pipe cleaner to the other crossbar hanger. And now I'm going to show you this from a different angle. Okay, so now it's time to clean our swag up a bit. So you just want to release that pipe cleaner from the upright, and now we're going to tug at our pleats so we could just make them tighter. You just making any adjustments that you saw. I saw in the middle that it was a little loose, so all I did was just pull it a little tighter. And when you have your pleats in your hand, if there's anything you don't like, you can start pulling them to make them tighter, or loosening them up. This is when you start doing the cleanup process to fix anything you don't see. So once all your pleats are evenly landed how you want them to be, you're going to secure your pipe cleaner back around your swag so that now you can secure it for good to the upright. So you want to make sure that your pipe cleaner is tight. Give it a good amount of twists. Not too tight though, because they can pop. And now you just want to secure that. Since I'm gonna use pole covers, I am actually securing this to the crossbar hanger instead of the upright. So now that I have my pole cover, I take this excess piece from the swag and I just tuck it inward so you don't see it. This helps me get a clean, polished look as well. So I'm just going to take all that excess and just stuff it in the inside. And since it's not a whole lot, you won't see it. If it was, sometimes you can do a valance with a 30-foot panel and it can act as a pole cover, but in this instance, it's not that long, so I have to add an additional pole cover. I choose to use white to just give it a pop. Again, that's balancing out my colors, because the gold and red, once it's open, you're going to have some white in the middle. So that's again designing around my positive space and making sure my negative space is well balanced. So that pole cover is secure. We are going to go do the same thing on the opposite side. Again, that's why it's always handy to have a pole cover readily available, so you don't have to make them. So you want to take your excess again, just tuck it on the inside. Make sure it's all the way down so you don't see it at the top of your backdrop. And then you're going to just add your pole cover. Be sure your any tags and any pipe cleaners is in the inside so you don't see. Again, make sure your hole is very small so it don't slide onto your upright. Then you want to just fix your swag so you don't see any pole. You want to make sure all of your poles, all of your crossbar hangers, all of your hardware is properly hidden. You shouldn't be able to see anything. And then as well as fixing the top of your crossbar, making sure it's even, it's flush all the way across, and you're good to go. Now it's time to lift. And remember to lift from the top bar first. If you have a 3-piece, always lift your top bar, your very top bar first, pole. If you need additional height, you would go to your second pole. Lift that side. Make sure your pole cover is secure. And go up. Okay, in this segment we will start designing your double crossbar backdrop. Everything's up and ready to go. So, just as I instructed before, you are going to do the same hand technique and use the same hand mechanics to design this backdrop. You also are going to measure from that bottom slot on your upright. If your upright does not have a bottom slot, use something such as your belly button or something that will be the same exact height no matter where you go, no matter where you stand. So you're going to start using the hand over hand method and just start to create your pleats. I'm starting with the very first fabric, which is the crushed sheer. And remember to tuck that last piece inward so you don't see your seam. Then go on to your sequin. I'm on camera, so I noticed that the pleat was turned the wrong way, so I could fix it immediately. However, if I did not catch it right here, I would have been able to catch it at the end when you go to do the polishing. So you just keep on grabbing your fabric and tuck the last piece in. Now if you aren't comfortable yet, you can secure this portion to your upright, or you can continuously pleat your fabric. So just start with your next piece, and you want to be certain that you tuck it inward, especially since it's a transition, it's a color change and it's a transition. You definitely don't want it to be your pleats uneven or like a gap. So be sure to be very careful once you start changing the colors. And you just keep on pleating. And you can start to see them fold and form from the top all the way down. So once you do the hand mechanics correctly, it's really not too much fixing you have to do because the pleats will form on their own. And that's, I have 3 panels, so I'm going to go on and secure that to my upright. So I just want to straighten out my fabric before I continue on to the pleating. And I'm going to start with my next piece, which is the heavy velvet, which drapes so beautifully. I want to measure it by just making sure that it's not going to be a gap when I pleat it with the rest of the fabric. So just make sure it's nice and tight and it's closed. And then continue with your pleating. Tuck in your last piece, and voila. Now you just want to secure that to the upright. So just be sure that there are no gaps, and you want to pull on your pleats, but on the bottom half, just to close up any gaps you may have. If your fabric, the end part that you fold inward, if it's you know, not looking the how it should look, you can go on and adjust it right then and there, or you could just wait till all of your fabric is secure and clean it up at the end. So when you do this, it's best to have your pipe cleaners already separate, or that will happen. And I left that error here on purpose because that happens quite often if you are not prepared. A lot of my pipe cleaners were kind of tangled, so it caused me to lose my drape. So just make sure your pipe cleaner is available and is loose if possible, and just go back in and do it again. Measure it that way. Just make sure it's nice, it's tight, it's even, and just continue with the hand over hand. Tuck in your last piece, and we're going to try this again. I didn't lose the drape that time. I didn't like how it was pleated, so I released it to do it again. And in the beginning, that may happen a lot with you guys. You may not be comfortable and think the pleats are perfect, so it's quite all right to let a few of them go to start back over. Now, see where the gap is? That is when I'm going to pull down on the bottom half to close in that gap. Have my pipe cleaner ready to go, and now I'm ready to secure. Now I notice that little imperfection. This is my opportunity to go and fix it. Look totally different. That one small imperfection really could have messed up the whole design for the sake of pictures. If you don't go back and check your work, you can easily miss it. Now we're ready to go on to the next step. And I'm going to show you a close-up of what we just saw, so you can see the close-up of the hand mechanics again. Okay, so now we're going to go to the opposite side and start with the design on this side. So get your pipe cleaners ready and make them loose so you don't have to worry about losing your fabric. Sometimes you can take 2 pipe cleaners and tie them together if you feel that you're going to grab too much fabric and it's going to be too hard to tussle. Like if you're using any more than 2 panels, I would suggest you to tie 2 pipe cleaners together just for the sake of having extra as opposed to not having enough or fumbling to tie it and you cannot. So I just tied 2 together just to secure my velvet drape so I don't have to really tussle with it too much. Then I'm going on with my hand over hand method. Continuing on with my gold sequin, and see how I am standing directly behind the upright. If I was to stand in front of the upright or maybe too far left, the drape would not be placed correctly, because wherever you stand is where the drape is going to come. So be sure that you're not bending over too far, so you're not, you have to bring the fabric to you. And just continue on with your panels. Right now that is it's not a red, it's like a deep red, I guess, almost maybe an apple crushed vol. And it's so funny with the reds, the shades are like so different. And even this came from the same company, which was Decor. And I got the red and the crushed sheer, and I also got it in a crushed taffeta, and it is totally different. So if you can, it would be smart to invest in a swatch card so you could be clear and certain of the color you're choosing. Funny colors are reds, pinks, and blues because it's just so many shades. So you want to secure your drape to the upright. And then you're going to continue on with your velvet drape. You want to extend it out and measuring it by making sure it can reach where you have tied your other drapes and you won't have a gap. So just continue with your hand over hand all the way till you reach the end, and you want to tuck in your drape. Comb through your pleats, and if something doesn't feel right, you can always release and redo. Yeah, I didn't like that whole thing didn't feel right, so just release it and redo it. Once you get fast, this normally happens in a matter of seconds. You'll pleat your drape really, really quick, and if it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right, you won't have a problem letting it go because it's not a long process. Then you adjust it according to pulling it, and then you want to release a little bit so it can have a little more of a flowy effect and not so tight. And just want to keep on adjusting to where all of it is tight and you can't see where the two drapes meet. Secure it with your pipe cleaner and you're good to go. Here is that same clip. I'm giving you a close-up so you could pay very close attention to the hand mechanics again, because this is one of the most crucial steps in your design process. So let's watch. Now it's time to clean up your design and give it a very neat and polished look. You want to fix any imperfections you see, and you want to start with your base layer, which would be your white. You want to make sure that that is all puddled correctly. All of your pleats are nice and uniformed and defined. And just make sure it's all even, that you have that B line going across your white drape at the floor. It should be a straight line going all the way across. Don't leave your puddle, don't have excess fabric out, having it look, unpolished or anything other than what you want to produce, which is premium draping. Then you're going to go and continue with the next piece, which is your focal fabric. You want to tuck, if it's super long, you want to tuck that under your white fabric. You do not want to just puddle it and leave it directly in front of your base layer. You want to tuck it underneath. No one should know that that drape is super long. And that as well should have a clean flush along the floor. You should still see a B line. Any excess, throw it under the white and make sure it's all puddled and neat. Once you have all that nice and neat, and make sure it's all even, now you want to just double check your pleats before you get to doing any other puddling. Double check your pleats, make sure you can comb through them. Anything you see that you don't like, this is your time to fix it. Even at the bottom, the same order that your fabric is at the top, it should be the same at the bottom. So if you have a taupe, a gold, a burgundy, and a burgundy, it should be the same down the bottom. You have to adjust your fabric to where it corresponds to what you have designed at the top. Then you start the puddling process. If it's really long drape left over, you just want to make sure you puddle it very neat by pushing your excess in the back like I showed you earlier, and just leaving just enough to give you a nice puddle. You don't want to have a big balloon with all that fabric. So be sure to just tuck it in the back, meaning the back of your backdrop. Don't just puddle it up under that fabric. Kick it all the way to the back of your backdrop. And then just bring enough in the front to where you can have a nice puddle and not a big balloon. Okay, there you go. And we're going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side. You're going to pick your fabric up, kick it to the back, not just poofing it all together. Now see how my fabric is almost about to be out of placement. You definitely want to make sure the same way you have your fabric lined up the top, it's in the same exact order as the bottom. And there you go. Pull that excess fabric through and leave yourself just enough to give you a nice polished look. Not too much, but just enough. Then you move on to your pole covers. Now you want to make sure that they are neat and puddled. So now you may see why I chose to go with the white pole covers, because it kind of just makes everything tie together. I think if I'd have used any other color, it would have been overkill. If I used gold or red, it would have been overkill. The white kind of just brings everything back to a balanced state. And here you will look at that same clip, but from a close-up angle, so you can see close up just what I'm doing to puddle this drape the right way, and to make sure that the focal fabric is tucked under appropriately, and then how to puddle your swags, and you have a complete polished design. And that's it. Now you're just going to add your sashes and you're good to go.